Hello and welcome to another video and podcast from fantasyfootballscout.co.uk. My name is Joe and today I'm joined by David to discuss the best captaincy candidates for Game Week 3. David, welcome. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Thanks. Unfortunately, I already had my first captain blank of the season in Game Week 2, so I can't replicate the 17 streak of last season. But hey, I think it went wrong for a lot of people. Salah let us down. But yeah, a great captaincy debate this week, I think, because there's lots of choice.
Yes.
And historically, we kind of get stressed by these sort of I don't know who to captain weeks, but actually, when there's so many options, it kind of potentially could be one of those game weeks where actually it doesn't really matter who you go with. Hopefully, you at least get something. So yeah, let's see.
Yeah, I've started to be a bit more decisive about these things. I had a particular captain in mind for this week, and that captaincy decision has not wavered. But yeah, as you said, lots of choice this week. We've got the fixtures up on the screen, and there's some really great fixtures there, particularly looking at Spurs at home to Newcastle, City away to Bournemouth, and Liverpool against Arsenal, which is actually quite a good fixture possibly for Liverpool assets. So let's move on. Let's start looking at the pendulum that's swinging between Sterling and Salah. It's sort of a fantasy football themed grandfather clock pendulum, and it's firmly in favour of the Man City man at the moment. So yeah, what do you think of Sterling as well as some of his teammates away to Bournemouth for the captaincy?
Yeah, I must admit that when I set my bus team for Game Week 3, which I did not straight after the deadline, I did it after watching Game Week 2, Sterling was the one that I put the captaincy on. Now, just to sort of clarify a few things, I don't own Kane yet. I might do, and we'll talk about his credentials shortly. But Sterling, to me, just is looking increasingly like, I don't want to say an auto-captain because we know he can get benched, but he... I've said a few times over the summer, he has the potential to be kind of like the new Aguero for this team. Not in that he's the centre forward, but he's just the guy that's going to start every week and get you some points because he's come along so much as a player in the last couple of years under Guardiola, and it's been incredible to watch as an England fan. It's been great. And he started the season perfectly as well. Hat-trick in Game Week 1, goal against Spurs in Game Week 2, and the underlying stats are really nice as well. So currently, after the first two game weeks, he is joint top of the league with one Teemu Pukki for shots inside the box with 10, and he is second to Pukki for shots on target with 6. And the opposition he's played haven't exactly been, in the most recent game was Spurs, who are top 6 side. So if he can do that against the poor teams in West Ham and the good teams like Spurs, then to me that just shows you that he is a reliable option. We kind of both said for the first 2 game weeks, we were both torn between Salah and Sterling, weren't we? And we went with Salah, and both times we said Sterling's going to punish us, both times he did.
Yes.
So I think sometimes you have to sort of like the early captains, you have to learn your lessons. And I think when Salah first turned up, we weren't captaining him enough, and then we eventually went, okay, he's the one who's punishing me every week, so I'm going to captain him. Yeah. So I'm sort of coming around to that view on Sterling as well. Just one other final thing, top of the league for big chances as well. So of those shots that he's having, yes, fine. Pukki's had the same number of shots in the box as him and more shots on target, but Sterling's getting the bigger and better opportunities. So it's really hard to look past him for this game. Quick word on the Bournemouth defence as well. Haven't conceded too many goals yet, but they probably should have conceded more against Villa than they did. They probably should have conceded more against Sheffield United than they did. They haven't played a team that played in the Premier League last year so far. And despite that fact, they're still second bottom of the league for big chances conceded. They've conceded 6 in the first 2 matches. Only West Ham have conceded more. So it does look like it could be a heavy win. And right now, if there's going to be heavy Man City wins, you have to look at Raheem Sterling for me.
Yeah, I mean, what I like about Sterling, as well as the underlying stats, which, as you said, he's on a par with Pukki, the great Pukki, who scored a hat-trick last week with 10 shots there. But I also like his actual points as well. So he's got 4 goals in 2 matches. So his underlying stats are good. His actual stats are good as well. Firmly on the radar, obviously. Everyone knows about Sterling now. But I just think he's going to possibly be overlooked by many. You've mentioned yourself and myself have ignored him for the captaincy the last 2 weeks. And both weeks he has outscored Salah. So, time for me to move to Sterling. For me personally, I can't see past Sterling. I think Bournemouth are bad. Also, looking at shots conceded for Bournemouth as well. 30 shots so far. So that's against promoted sides. That's the joint third worst. So you mentioned about the big chances there. So it's the shots as well. They've only conceded 2 goals though. So if anything, I think they may have been lucky not to concede more. And your stats
Absolutely.
there suggest that as well, and so do the shot stats. So all of that adds up to, for me, Sterling for the captaincy. That's what I like as well. What about some other Man City assets though? Obviously those who don't have Sterling, but perhaps have KDB or Aguero. Should they perhaps consider captaining one of those assets?
Yeah, I think so. If you don't have Sterling, I mean, you're a brave man or woman. But if you've covered, I use that word in inverted commas because I know that some people don't like that word. But if you've got De Bruyne, then then fair play to you, because if we're talking about outscoring, this and everything else, De Bruyne outscored Sterling in game week 2. So and that was just because he had an exceptional game. I mean, when he's on his top game and you don't have him and you're watching the game, it's really scary because he is just involved with everything. And I mean, as much as Sterling's about the goals, De Bruyne is about the creativity. But because he's so good, he can stack it up. I mean, he's got 3 assists already in 2 games. And again, looking at the underlying statistics, it looks sustainable as well because he is top of the league for chances created in the first 2 game weeks with 12. The next best player is on 8. So, he's already 4 ahead of the rest of the league. And top for big chances created as well. So not only is he creating lots of chances, he's creating quality chances as well. So I mean, I reckon if you have Sterling and De Bruyne, I'd go Sterling because I think he's going to get you the goals, and of course they're worth more points. But if you don't have Sterling and you do have De Bruyne, then I think fantastic option for this game week. Aguero, I'm still sort of undecided on because as we've seen first 2 game weeks, he still hasn't completed 90 minutes yet. It does look as if he is going to be managed, his minutes might be managed like they were last season. Jesus is having an increasing role in the team, and if it wasn't for VAR, Jesus was the match winner, right? So Jesus is very much stepping on his toes now. And we even saw last year that there were times when we wanted to captain Aguero because we thought he would get something, but we knew he's going to come off on 70 minutes with 6 points. So for me, it's really hard to sort of tip Aguero because A, we don't know if he's going to start, and B, if he does start, he's going to come off on the 65th minute, and Jesus will come on.
And speaking of Aguero, there's something I'll be talking to Neil about later in the week, really, looking at the press conferences, because I'm sure it will be asked in detail. But when Aguero was substituted off, it looked like he was having a bit of an argument with Guardiola.
That's true.
Now, I don't know whether it was an argument, it looked like an argument, but they were in fact just whispering sweet nothings about how marvellous they both are to each other. We don't know. So I'll be talking to Neil about that, see if we can get a bit more about that. But something like that, I didn't like the look of that in terms of Aguero, and especially Aguero for the captaincy.
What was funny was they made up, didn't they? They hugged when Jesus scored. And then, of course, the goal got ruled out. So it's like, well should we retract the hug? So, yeah, I know what you mean. It was so awkward.
There's something I don't quite like. I don't know. My fantasy intuition radar is tingling there. I'm not quite sure about it. Let's move on to Liverpool assets. And Salah's at home to Arsenal. Actually, a good fixture. Dare we captain Salah instead?
Well, I mean, I'd love to. But it's really tough, and I suppose we always talk about recency bias in FPL, don't we? And so then obviously our minds have been poisoned against captaining this week because Liverpool were rubbish against Southampton. But we can sort of think a little bit deeper and probably say, well, probably was caused by the fact that they most of those players had played 120 minutes against Chelsea in the Super Cup a few days before. Wednesday to Saturday is kind of like a short turnaround as it is, and if you're playing extra time as well. And you've won a trophy, so I'm sure they celebrated as much as they wanted to. So to see them not do as well against Southampton, I suppose, wasn't really a massive surprise. I thought they'd probably come through it, but they didn't. They won the game, but Salah didn't deliver. So then it kind of makes me go, I'm not so sure about Arsenal. But the fixture is very good. The fixture is good. Arsenal and Liverpool tend to score a lot of goals against each other. I think, was it 5-1 to Liverpool when Arsenal came to Anfield last season?
Yeah.
I think Salah got a penalty in that game. I seem to remember that actually Salah was a little bit, I don't want to say outperformed, but I'm pretty sure that Mane and Firmino kind of were more in that game, and Salah's points basically came for a penalty. Arsenal defence I still don't really trust. They were bottom of the league for clean sheets away from home last season, and of course Liverpool at home scored a lot of goals. So for me, it's less about the player and more about the fixture. So Salah's underlying statistics haven't really impressed me that much so far this year. In that they're just a bit they don't stand out very much. He's only had 5 shots, 4 in a box, 2 on target. 2 of those chances have been big chances, which at this stage in the season is a decent-ish number. But when you consider that we've got Jesus has had more shots in a box than Salah, and he's not started as many games. Richarlison's had more. Trezeguet, Aubameyang, Kane, Ashley Barnes, Sterling, Pukki, and probably segueing into someone else, someone who has also had more shots in the box than him first 2 matches is Firmino, who I believe has quite a good record against Arsenal, doesn't he, Joe?
Yeah, he does. So, I mean, as you said, just going back to Salah's stats there, 5 shots for Salah, that's half of Sterling. So I think that's the key there. So if there are many people out there are Salah and Sterling owners. You're deciding between the two. Well, there you go. Underlying stats says go for Sterling, not Salah. We're not seeing, as you said, those electric underlying stats. Remember, we were here last year before the Bournemouth match where we decided to captain Salah,
yes.
And people were saying no, but we were pointing to the electrifying underlying stats. But as you said, they're not quite there for Salah at the moment. And as you said as well, Firmino could be the better Liverpool shout. 6 shots he's had all in the box as well. So marginally better than Salah in terms of underlying stats. Bonus, obviously, they cost less. Salah and Mane, I think Mane is a good option as well. But I think Firmino could be the one, actually. Arsenal have conceded 27 shots so far. The joint 4th worst. Also in the last 4 home games against Arsenal, Liverpool have scored, and get this, 15 goals to Arsenal's 5, and in the last 2 of those home matches, Firmino has scored 4. Salah scored 2. Well, as you said, the last one was a penalty, and Mane has also scored 2. So, I don't know, if you're brave, I think Firmino is a really good captaincy shout this week.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, if you're looking for a differential.
Yeah.
Sometimes these weeks are good for differentials, aren't they? When you expect that there is some kind of split. I mean, I've got to be honest, it's not as much of a split as I was expecting. So the captain poll right now, just to update people, does have Kane up top, who we are going to talk about in a minute. And Sterling's, so there's a 10% gap between Kane and Sterling on 30%, Salah on 6%. So it's actually less of a split than I was thinking. But, the fact that there is, I think that the fantasy football scout kind of community is probably largely going to be split between Kane and Sterling.
Yes.
Going for a third of those sometimes is a way to get one over people at this early stage of the season. So, yeah, absolutely. Firmino is not a bad shout at all.
Yeah, ordinarily, it's Kane who would be the kind of differential man. He would be like the Eden Hazard of this season so far. But I think it could be Salah, or even better, as you said, Firmino. Mane as well under consideration. So I think the Liverpool assets are the differentials. Kane, it looks an obvious captaincy shout as well. We've mentioned about Sterling being great. We mentioned about the differential aspects of Liverpool, but Kane as well, home to Newcastle with a relegation and sacking specialist at the helm in Steve Bruce. Looks too good to turn down, doesn't it? What do we think of Harry Kane for the armband?
Yeah, I mean, I don't own him right now, and I plan to. I hope to. We'll see. Lots of research yet to be done. It smacks a little bit of game week 8, was it last year, when it's like every man and his dog and needs to get him in now because he's got a great fixture. I would say the player himself probably looks better than the fixture, dare I say it. We'll get onto that in just a minute. So Kane, he's currently got 6 shots in a box so far this season, 9 total. I believe 8 of his 9 shots so far were against Villa. And I don't really think we should be too worried about the fact he didn't have too many shots away at Man City, because who does, right? That doesn't bother me at all. I kind of see Newcastle at a similar level, I suppose, to Aston Villa. I guess it probably depends on what happens with Eriksen as well, because Spurs were rubbish. Spurs were rubbish without him until he came on. So I would probably just point in there, if Eriksen leaves in the next couple of days, because there's transfer windows still open in the rest of Europe, then I'd probably be a bit put off. Top of the poll as well. So, I mean, he's probably going to be the most popular captain. So there's that to consider. But I always like to try and combine, the player's form and the form of the team that they're facing. And Newcastle don't actually stick out to me as a team ready to get thrashed. I think they'll lose. Like, no offense, like, all due respect to Neil and the rest of the Newcastle fan base, I think they'll lose. But actually, we're looking at Sterling as perhaps maybe my favourite when we compare Bournemouth with Newcastle over the first 2 game weeks. Admittedly, it is just a small sample size, but actually Bournemouth looking a lot worse. So Bournemouth conceded 30 shots, Newcastle 23. You've got the big chances as well. It's 6 conceded for Bournemouth, 4 for Newcastle. In the box, it's more in Newcastle's sort of Newcastle conceded more in the box than Bournemouth have. But those big chances for me just suggest that Bournemouth are going to more likely to get thrashed than Newcastle. I think it's close, but I think Sterling still edges it. I mean, I know that a lot of people are going with Kane. I don't think he's a bad option. But yeah, when you sort of consider that Newcastle have played a top 6 team already, and then they played quite an attacking Norwich team, whereas Bournemouth have just played two newly promoted teams rather than one newly promoted team and a top 6 team, and the fact that Bournemouth looked still marginally worse defensively, that tells me that they're sort of more ready for a bit of a whipping than Newcastle are. So, Newcastle might still get thrashed, but it's just, when I like to sort of combine the opposition stats with the underlying stats, and I think Sterling looks better first 2 games, and Bournemouth look worse.
Yeah.
So Sterling probably my second choice. So Kane's still my second choice, but I think Sterling for me is still the top option. But I don't know, you might disagree. I'm sure it's going to be a big discussion topic.
I think a lot of people are considering getting Kane in this week. I think for me, if I get Kane in, then I start to think, should I captain Kane? And then Sterling really could punish again. May not, maybe good for Kane's favour. I think Kane's 9 shots, 6 of which in the box so far, and having played Man City, are really impressive. He looks to me a really good bet for the captaincy, a rank killer I put here, or a rank boost. Game-changing week it could be for the Kane and the Kaneless, I think. I probably won't have him as well, so I'm just going to pin my colours to that mast there. So I think there are lots of good options for less money out there, and I want to get them, and I don't want to scrape the barrel really for the likes of a 4.5 midfielder or 3, which means I think you get more for your money as well, and I think it means as well as for your Sterling owner, you can just captain him and saves a bit of time. You mentioned about Newcastle, 23 shots conceded. Yes, all but 4 of them were at close range as well. That's in Newcastle's favour, but also in Kane's favour, because most of his shots are at close range as well.
Yeah, that's true.
I remember saying the same about Kane last season about him being a great captaincy option. Do you remember when he played Cardiff and he blanked?
Yeah, that was the week I didn't get him, so hopefully...
it was the week I did and didn't captain whoever else was there, in this case Sterling. So I think I've been there before. I'd like to see how he gets on in a so-called easy game at home. He has Arsenal next, so I wouldn't want to captain him next week anyway. And then it starts to get a bit easier again, another home game. Yeah. So I think
that's the thing, is we haven't really seen enough of Kane. That's just the other thing that puts me off. We haven't really seen enough of Kane in this type of fixture this season because... I mean, you're right. The stats, the mitigating factor for him being behind Sterling so far is the fact that he had to play Man City away. But yeah, I mean, just harking back to game week 1, Spurs looked so bad without Eriksen in the first hour against Villa, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to play badly again, even if he's there. But just we've all been let down by Kane before, whereas Sterling has done it against a rubbish team and done it against a good team, and then in the first 2 game weeks, which for me sort of he's kind of ticked both boxes. I trust him now. Yeah. Whereas, and I'm not saying I don't trust Kane, but you have to earn the trust within this season. So actually, I'd probably feel more comfortable captaining Kane after he's maybe got a goal and assist against Newcastle than before it, if that makes sense, because it's all about minimising risk with your captaincy. You want to try and get something reliable. I mean, that's the way I approach it.
It is. I think with Sterling and Salah, I think you'll get something. But with Kane, it's feast or famine. You're either going to get 1 point or 2 points, or you're going to get about 34, 40 points, and he'll score 3, 4 goals. We don't know, and that's what you're going to get. So that's why I think for me, I'm not that type of manager. So I'm going to go for slightly safer options. But well done for those that do get Kane in and captain him ahead of his inevitable hat-trick, because I don't own him. Let's look at some of the best of the rest, really. It's Manchester United I like the look of as well. Home to Palace, a couple of really good fixtures coming up. Rashford and Martial, popular in the transfer market. What about for the armband as well?
I still don't think I'm too sold on United for captaincy. I mean, I've been looking at them. The only thing that puts me off Martial, I believe he's had 3 shots in 2 games, which for me is sort of... I know that there's kind of the age-old debate of, volume of shots versus quality of shots, but... and of course, the Wolves... I said, I'd be worried if he... I'd be worried about him playing Wolves because I don't... I think their defence is quite good and he still scored against them. So I'm not saying he's a bad option, but I kind of want to see a bit more from Martial before I captain him. Rashford, obviously, I guess if I'm going to get a United attacker, I'm not going to get Rashford because I can get Martial for cheaper. Rashford's playing on the wing, and he was kind of putting crosses into the box against Wolves largely. And I know he got an assist, but like generally speaking, if you've signed a forward player on FPL, he's 8.6 million now. You don't really want him on the wing. And of course, you can't really guarantee he's going to take the penalties either, as we saw on Monday night. It turns out that basically whoever feels confident takes the penalty. So, a fantasy manager can't predict that. So I wouldn't captain Rashford. I'd be possibly tempted by Martial, but, I'm not even sure I'm going to own him yet. But Man United definitely do look a lot better. This isn't to discredit the progress I think they've made this season. I think they look very good going forward and at the back, better than they did in the latter half of last season. So potentially further down the line, maybe they come into my thinking a bit more.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. I think they're great options this week. I'm still slightly hesitant to put the captaincy there. I do like Martial and Rashford though. And Palace, it's worth noting, have conceded 25 shots in the last 2 matches. That's more than Newcastle. So if people are thinking about Kane, well, hang on a minute. Looks like Manchester United are actually playing a worse defence than them. Meanwhile, Rashford and Martial have obviously already got off the mark as well. Martial, number 9 as well, and more in the box, his shots. So you would expect that really as the number 9 there. Here's just some stats there. Rashford so far, 2 big chances. Martial 1. 6 goal attempts for Rashford. 2 in the box, but Martial 5 goal attempts, 3 in the box. So shooting a little less often, but more where you want them to be, near the goal. And as we saw against Wolves, and I think the Wolves and the Manchester United defences both did a good job on each other on the whole. But ultimately, a bit of class on both sides unlocked their defences. It was Martial for Manchester United. I think those that I would not raise an eyebrow if someone said they were captaining Martial or even Rashford this week. I would say good luck. I think that's an okay move. And, what about some other options? I mean, we're possibly getting down to the barrel scraping stage, but yeah, any other captaincy options to mention?
Well, I've seen you've written down Vardy away at Sheffield United, and I just we might talk about it on the Scoutcast, but I just want to say I've been really disappointed with the way that Leicester have started the season offensively. I kind of expected a lot more from them in the Wolves game when Wolves just had a 6,000-mile round trip to Armenia.
Yeah,
they didn't really offer anything. And they didn't really offer anything against Chelsea until the last sort of 20 minutes. And that was the most annoying way it could have gone because actually they looked quite good in the last 20 minutes and Vardy looked due a goal and didn't get one.
That's why I put him down,
But it plays at the back of your mind, especially because a lot of people have got him and thinking about moving him on. I mean, he's part of my Kane in plan. Sheffield United, that's kind of, I've just sort of discussed why I'm just a bit not sure about Leicester. Sheffield United, on the other hand, like their system, I really like it, and it's really hard to break down, as Bournemouth and Palace have shown. I know that Bournemouth and Palace attack hasn't really exactly pulled up trees anyway, so maybe we shouldn't be too shocked they've kept clean sheets there. And of course, Leicester has the potential to do better than them. But yeah, so far Sheffield United conceded just 2 big chances. That's the same number as Man City. And only Wolves and Man United have conceded fewer than that. So, again, I know it's only 2 games into the season, but I do think Sheffield United are going to be one of these teams that will throw spanners into the works. I mean, if we're ever coming up with a situation where we could say captain Sterling against Sheffield United or Salah against, sort of another mid-table team, like a West Ham or a Brighton or like a Watford, I'd go for the one who isn't playing Sheffield United because I think that they know how to defend. That's basically what got them promoted. They got 21 clean sheets last season in the Championship and seem to be, so far, coping with the step up. So,
and obviously they have the human brick wall of Lundstram as well in their side, who I've been told by people who don't own him not to mention because we have. But oh dear, I've just mentioned him again. But nevertheless,
Joe, you're so mean.
I know. But nevertheless, I do think Vardy is an intriguing option as well because we know he has the pedigree. I also think that Leicester looked a little better when Albrighton came on. Now that might surprise people.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So it could be that Perez is taking a little while to adjust into the system, and Vardy perhaps prefers a more familiar face like Albrighton. There, just speculating. Very too early to say to put a theory.
No, I think you could be onto something there. I mean, something I said over the summer was the reason I didn't get Perez and I did get Vardy if I'm going for a Leicester attacker was we know what we can expect from Vardy. we didn't really know what we could expect from Perez because, fine, he finished the season quite well for Newcastle, but he was more the focal point of the Newcastle team than he's going to be at Leicester. And we saw him played in midfield on the left. We saw him played alongside Vardy. We saw him play behind Vardy. In pre-season, wasn't really that obvious where best to use him. And I still don't think Rodgers knows that. So then, to me, it's no surprise that Perez hasn't exactly lit, the world on fire since coming to Leicester. So, whereas Brighton, I think, is one of the one of the most underrated players in the Premier League. He's a reliable, hard-working player with fantastic delivery. So you could be right. If he's going to get some starts ahead of Perez, then maybe Vardy's going to start, getting back to the form we saw him at the end of last season.
Yeah, that's my hope. So those are captaining Vardy. Very brave, and good luck to you there. Just before we go, any others as we move to the bottom of that barrel?
Not really. No. Sorry. I think we with Vardy I think that's the bottom of the barrel. No disrespect to Vardy.
No, that's true. I think there are a few options, but I don't think they can compete with Kane, Sterling, and Salah in particular as well. But Pukki against Chelsea, the Chelsea defence have not looked good. Pukki is in a great form as well, an intriguing differential option there as well. But as you said, it's hard to look past those big guns as well. Keep an eye out on site though. We have the captain poll there. If you haven't voted already, please do vote. Remember, this is the captaincy, the captain choice that you think is the best one. Not necessarily that you own, but just the best captain for the week. Do vote there, have a look at that and see which way the community is going currently for Kane, but it may be that Sterling fans move up that table as well. And also a reminder to look at the members section as well. If you are a member there, have a look at all the fantastic fixture season tickers, particularly I've been looking at the moment as I'm looking to change my team a little bit, and all sorts of things there as well. So if you're not a member already, please to get membership. If you are a member, then please have a look at the stats. They're all there as well. But for now, David, goodbye and good luck with the captaincy selection this week.
Cheers, and to you as well.